The Baltimore Ravens lose to the Cleveland Browns in Week 14. We talk about it all next here on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we returned here with another episode of Locked On Ravens. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire. We return here. It is unfortunately not another Victory Monday here on the show, our second consecutive non-Victory Monday, as the Baltimore Ravens lose the Cleveland Browns by the final score, a close one, 24-22 in Week 14. Not what the Ravens were hoping for, especially in the first half. And look, all things considered, considering who they lost during the game, who they were working with, even who they lost before the game. And the inactive list comes out. There's no Patrick Ricard, no Nick Boyle, no Jimmy Smith, right? It becomes something of, all right, this actually was kind of impressive in a way, but in other ways, this team, again, so close to a victory, but a play here, a catch there, a penalty here, and maybe the outcome is different. It's disappointing. The Ravens do fall to 8-5 on the season, and they still have sole possession of first place in the AFC North as the Cincinnati Bengals lose to the San Francisco 49ers in overtime. The Pittsburgh Steelers lost on Thursday Night Football to the Minnesota Vikings, and Cleveland was the only AFC North team to actually win. So Baltimore at 8-5 still there in the thick of the AFC North hunt, but things went from bad to worse with their injury situation. We'll talk about that all here in the first segment, well, honestly, throughout the entire show, because we do that a lot here this year on Locked On Ravens to how many injuries there are. So in the first segment, we'll talk about the offensive performance, Lamar Jackson's injury, Tyler Huntley, and the rest of that. In the second segment, we'll move over to defense. It was really, again, a tale of two halves for this defense. Then in the final segment, we'll just look ahead, as we usually do in the final segments of Mondays, and just recap what's been going on this year and with the injury situation, once again, for this Ravens team. So let's dive into it here. Before we do that, though, be sure to follow us anywhere you get your podcasts, either in audio form or video form if you're in audio form, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Be sure to follow the show. Be sure to turn notifications on so you know when our content comes out. Same thing on YouTube if you're following along with us in video form so you see my face in my background. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. It all helps out a lot. And I do want to thank you for making Locked On Ravens your first listen of the day. And also thank you for listening after a loss. I know it's very difficult, very upsetting to listen to content about a team that you root for that just lost, but I do appreciate it because I know it is difficult. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter at ChaosStriker34 and the Locked On Ravens account at Locked On Ravens on Twitter. So let's dive into this Cleveland-Baltimore game. Again, Baltimore falling by the final score of 24-22. Let's start with the injury situation, though. Lamar Jackson leaving the game in the first half with an ankle injury. Did not return to the contest. After the game, Ravens head coach John Harbaugh talked a little bit about it, said, we're just going to see how it responds. Didn't say he needed x-rays, but there were multiple reports, one from ESPN, one from Just Rebuck at The Athletic. There are apparently some fears that it could be a high ankle sprain, but also it seems like they're bracing for it to be just a low ankle sprain. So very unclear right now. I'm not going to speculate about what it is. The play was Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the rookie linebacker for Cleveland. Lamar Jackson was trying to escape out of the pocket, and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah tackled him low, fell on his ankles, and Jackson, couldn't really get up. The ref kind of reached down and said, hey, you need a hand. And he's like, no, I can't get up. So training staff came out, gets taken out on the court, and ultimately is questionable to return, then ruled out eventually. So Tyler Huntley comes in the game. But for Jackson in particular, if it is a high ankle sprain, those things can linger. So that's potentially, if the Ravens don't make the playoffs this year, a season-ending injury, because it could be anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks, 4 to 8 weeks. Those things really, depending on how severe it is, can take a long, long time to heal. If it's a low ankle sprain, it's more just pain tolerance and just getting stuff to heal. And obviously low ankle sprains are much better than a high ankle sprain. And I'm no doctor or anything, but the best scenario for Lamar Jackson at this point is probably a low ankle sprain. Obviously, the actual best case scenario is that he's 100% healthy. But, this late in the year with what happened to him in Week 14, that's just not going to happen. If Jackson is forced to miss extended time, it's going to be the Tyler Huntley show in Baltimore. And Huntley showed that he is more than serviceable as a backup, especially coming into NFL action that he wasn't really expecting to come into on Sunday against Cleveland. 27-38 for Huntley, 207 yards, 1 touchdown. had a QBR of 57.4, also ran 6 times for 45 yards, including an amazing 13-yard run where he was shaking and baking, took somebody's ankles. He was doing everything, channeling his inner Lamar Jackson on that one. So that was fun to watch, but it goes to show that, the Ravens aren't completely sunk if Lamar Jackson's out, but at the same time, they kind of are. It's a two-way streak. It's not that I don't believe in Tyler Huntley, but Lamar Jackson is the lifeblood of this Ravens team, of this Ravens organization. If Lamar Jackson goes out, whoever's the backup quarterback, the offense is going to take a hit. And I know Jackson's been playing poorly over the past month or so. It's really been a struggle for him. I understand that. Huntley made some throws in this game. He also made some poor decisions, a couple bad decisions carrying the football. He got stripped from behind on one where he wasn't really protecting the ball, fumbled in Cleveland territory deep in it, and turned the ball over when the Ravens needed points. He also lost another fumble. That wasn't his fault. He was cocking the ball back to throw it. And of course, Myles Garrett, who's one of the best defenders in the NFL right now, ended up stripping him and taking it back for a score. So a couple of turnovers from Tyler Huntley, a couple of overthrows on some deep balls to Marquise Brown that could really have shifted the tides of this game. But again, penalties a story, lack of run game for the most part a story, all these different things that keep recurring, offensive line play, the handling against the blitz. Honestly, I thought that this was one of Greg Roman's worst games calling it this year. I've been, on this show before talking about how I've been impressed with his improvements in the play calling aspect of his game. I thought it was calling more balanced games. He was letting the run game feed off of the pass game, the pass game feed off of the running game a little bit more. Wasn't necessarily forcing one aspect, but we just saw really interesting decisions. And interesting, I don't mean the good way of interesting. Just like, again, 3 draw plays on third down, 3 option, quarterback draws up the middle, 3 punts. It's not working the first time, not working the second time, not working the third time. By the time the second time rolls around, it's not really working. I'm not running it again. Then there was another option play where Devonta Freeman gets the ball on third down and it doesn't go anywhere. So it's just like repetitive mistakes where you see that something's not working and you just keep going back to it. I think rollout plays that Baltimore use generally don't work very well. And we see those time and time again. We saw it on the 2-point conversion. That was another controversial decision that John Harbaugh ended up making, where the Ravens are down 9 with about 9 minutes left in the game. They can kick the extra point, make it a 1-possession game. That's, 8 points. Or they can go for 2, try to make it a 7-point game so you understand where you are at the 2-point conversion. I wasn't necessarily here or there with it. Like, I understand why John Harbaugh did it. I also think that the extra point would have been nice. And look, it's all in hindsight, right? Oh, they didn't get the 2-point conversion. They should have kicked the extra point. I don't look at it that way. I look at it as, hey, how did I feel in that moment? And I thought, you know what? The way the Ravens offense was playing, the way that they were able to drive down the field, maybe John Harbaugh was going to make that decision to go for 2. He ultimately did it, and it didn't pay off. And it put them in a spot, but hey, Justin Tucker's onside kick now. What a kick that was. The Ravens, they got the ball back. They had an opportunity, but they just couldn't get the job done. Unfortunately, Denzel Ward makes a play on 4th down. You see the slant about 1 yard past the line of scrimmage on a 4th and 5, 4th and 6 around that. I tried to block it out a little bit, but yeah, doesn't end up working out for them. They dug themselves in too big of a hole early, though. That's one of the main storylines here. Going into halftime, it was 24-6, and the Ravens defense, to their credit, we'll talk about it, held the Browns scoreless in the second half, but again, too little too late by both the Ravens offense and the Ravens defense in this one. 10 penalties for the Ravens in this game, 125 yards. The referee play, or I guess officiating in general in this game, was very questionable at best. There were bad calls on both sides. The Ravens getting the short end of the stick a couple times for sure, especially on a 30-yard pass interference play to Jarvis Landry, where Jarvis Landry's hooking Chris Westry, and Chris Westry gets punished for it. It's like, what are we doing here? Come on now. So just really infuriating stuff there, where Chris Westry makes a great play on the football, turns his head around, is literally playing the ball. It's what you're taught to do. The ball's a little underthrown, and, it just doesn't go the Ravens' way, which it really should have been. Officiating has been a key point for a long, long time, just how bad it's been at points. So it's unfortunate that Ravens seemingly have had to go through the short end of that for seemingly a couple years now, but every team goes through it. So, not an excuse, if the Ravens don't put yourselves in those situations. Again, the Ravens haven't scored an offensive touchdown in the first quarter, or a touchdown in general in the first quarter, since week 6. That's 115 minutes and 12 seconds of consecutive first quarter action. The Ravens have not scored an offensive touchdown, or a touchdown in general. That's not good at all. The fast starts, we've talked about it week in, week out on the show. Is it the week now? Is it the week now? Is it the week now? And it never is. So when are they going to buck that trend? I think it's really important to do so because it's the momentum game. You see Cleveland get the momentum early. They ride it into halftime. Now Baltimore gets it back. But just imagine if the Ravens go into halftime instead of down 24-6, down, 21-13. That's a whole different ball game because the Ravens understand, hey, look, we bucked that trend. We can now go and score. Let's go do it in the second half. And it takes a little less time. You're down a little less points, and that just all really helps out. Also in this one, the Ravens 1 for 12 on third down on offense. That's just over 8%. It's not going to cut it. It's not going to cut it at the NFL level, and they have to be better in those situations. For sure, not going to get the job done that way. The run game averaged 5.1 yards per carry, led by Tyler Huntley, 7.5. Devonta Freeman was not bad in this one, 4.9, 13 carries for 64 yards. It's what you want. 4.9 yards per carry. I will definitely take that. Lamar Jackson, 2 for 5. Devin Duvernay, 1 for 3. Latavius Murray, 1 for 1, and a score. Receiving-wise, Mark Andrews, 11 receptions, 115 yards, and a touchdown for him. Rashad Bateman, 7 for 103. Marquise Brown, 5 for 41. Devin Duvernay, 2 for 14. Devonta Freeman, 5 for 8. Then you had Josh Oliver, 1 for 6. Also in this game, Sammy Watkins appeared to leave with an injury, and Tylan Wallace had a concussion. He also was ruled out for the remainder of the game quickly after Jackson was. So those two also out for who knows how long. Tylan Wallace will have to pass concussion protocol. He's been a great special teamer for them. Sammy Watkins, another aspect of their offense that is now down and maybe out. We don't really know the status of that right now, but the Ravens offense shows some flashes. Tyler Huntley shows that he can lead this offense, and he's definitely a serviceable backup, but the Ravens just don't get the job done. And the defense, again, giving up those 24 points in the first half definitely did not help. We'll talk about that defense coming back in the second segment here. So we'll head into our first break. So stay tuned for our second segment, and we'll be right back. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friends logging for the good stuff. Well, I'm going to tell you about a simple way to get all the entertainment you love without the hassle and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Streaming. It brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion to get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Better voice required. Content varies by package. We return here, our second segment of this Monday edition of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher, your host, still here with you, talking after a Ravens pretty heartbreaking loss, all things considered, 24-22 to Cleveland in Week 14. And it's like, so they're down 24-6 at the half, right? And you're kind of out of it at that point. You're thinking, all right, look, no Lamar Jackson, no Calais Campbell. They already didn't have Patrick Ricard and Patrick McCary and Nick Boyle and Jimmy Smith. Like, all right, they're down 24-6 at half. I accept it. I feel like that's what a lot of people were going through at that point. And then all of a sudden, they start creeping back in, getting down to the wire. And all of a sudden, I think a lot of people felt the heartbeat starting to go a little bit. And, you're thinking, oh, no way. Are they going to do it again? Are they going to actually do it again? Down almost every player on their roster. Are they going to pull it out again? And it was just heartbreak at the end. It was tough, but a very resilient effort from a team that never, ever gives up. And that goes on the defensive side of the ball for this team, as really impressive that they did not give up a single point in the second half to this Baker Mayfield-led offense. Overall, we'll talk about the two first half, second half performances. So in the first half, Cleveland just took it to them. We saw miscommunications. We saw penalties, which were untimely, and just stuff that wasn't going their way. The Browns had a couple big runs on the ground, but it wasn't necessarily anything super flashy, right? There was one big play. The longest play of the game for Cleveland was 34 yards to Donovan Peoples-Jones. So good thing we didn't see any 60-yarders, any 34-yarders. But in the second half, it seemed like Cleveland kind of took their foot up off the gas a tiny bit and then couldn't get the momentum back on offense. We see that sometimes where offenses, they're up big at the half and they're like, all right, we got this in the bag, right? Let's just try to run the clock down. Let's try to pick up a couple first downs, maybe score a couple points. But it wasn't working that way. And so the Browns, they get into field goal range once. Chase McLaughlin misses the punt or the kick. Field goal pushes it. So The Ravens, they have an opportunity. That defense gets them back in the game because the offense starts to click a little bit. The defense is playing well. What's impressive to me is that, again, they were doing it without Calais Campbell. Jimmy Smith is not active for this team in this game. They're already down Marlon Humphrey, their first full game without him this year. They're looking at this Browns team that has done whatever they wanted pretty much in the first half, and they stood up. They stood up to the task, and a big part coming into this game was the sack total for the Ravens, as they didn't really get to Ben Roethlisberger in Week 13. Didn't sack Baker Mayfield once in Week 14, and it's kind of what we've been talking about here on Locked On Ravens for a while now. It's the fact that the pass rush is very inconsistent, where they're a high pressure, low sack team. Multiple times in this game, we saw the Ravens pass rush get home to Baker Mayfield, make Baker Mayfield a bit uncomfortable in that pocket, but they couldn't bring him down, or he escaped and everything. And it was just like, he escaped. I think he would have been sacked for about a 4, 5, 6 yard loss. He ends up escaping, makes run to the end of the field or the edge of the field and ends up getting about 2 or 3 yards. So it's plays like those, the momentum killing plays that, you're about to get a sack, right? About to push them back even further. And then the quarterback makes something happen. So hopefully moving forward, the Ravens can cut down on those. And that's been something we've been kind of talking about here for a while. But the Browns actually did pretty well on third down compared to the Ravens. The Browns were 6 for 13 on third down. And by the way, the Ravens were 3 or 4 on fourth down. So they were moving the ball, and they kind of had to go for it in their own territory a little bit. And they made the Browns pay for it. So that was one aspect that was really good. The Ravens holding the Browns to just 3.4 yards per carry. Not as good as their under 3 yards per carry average that they allowed in Week 12. But still, you have Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, who actually got injured in this game, and a big hit by Chuck Clark, I think it was. He didn't come back, but 3.6 or 3.4 yards per carry to a Browns team that is good at running the football. That pretty much is the lifeblood of their offense. That's pretty good, all things considered. I will take that. And usually when that happens, you almost expect to win the game. Baltimore ended up losing the time of possession battle in this one. 33 minutes and 50 seconds for the Browns, 26 minutes and 10 seconds for the Ravens. I talked about the Browns and the Ravens and the penalties in this game, kind of calls for both sides, not great. Well, the Ravens had 10 for 125, as I talked about. The Browns just 4 for 42. So that'll hurt you, especially on defense, on offense. But it seemed like the Ravens were getting held a lot in this game. And I'm not like complaining and saying, refs are always on the Ravens opponent's side. That's not what it is. But there have been historically bad calls against the Ravens, as there have been with every single team in the NFL. I'm not saying it's just a Ravens issue, but Tyus Bowser got held on multiple plays. He got called a couple times, but other times there was nothing. And it's those types of plays that are momentum killers. You get a stop or you get a short gain for the offense, and all of a sudden you got to march down the field because someone commits pass interference, someone commits defensive holding, or there's a face mask or something. And those are just killers. They're killers. So those are things the Ravens have to clean up. But I thought that Chris Westry played overall decently well. He's someone who's going to have to step up in a big way with the absence of Marlon Humphrey. 6 total tackles in a pass defense for Westry. Brandon Stevens led this team with 8 tackles. Chuck Clark with 7. Westry and Josh Bynes with 6. Anthony Averett and Nafe Oyo with 5. Just amount of weekend Christian Welch with 4. And then a bunch of guys down the line there with 3, 2, 1, and 0 as well. Anthony Averett records an interception in this game, right? We haven't really talked about Ravens interceptions this year. It's been a very few and far in between type of thing for this Ravens defense. The turnovers, they are negative in the turnover margin. That's not great. And they're a very low turnover defense this season, low interception team, especially this season. And we saw Brandon Stevens drop an easy interception twice. He did it twice on the same play. The ball kind of hit him in the face mask the first time, then bounced off his hands and went straight up in the air. He kind of dives for the ball a little bit and just has it bounce off his hands again. And we've seen Marlon Humphrey drop interceptions. We've seen, Chuck Clark drop interceptions. Brandon Stevens is the latest culprit of that for the Ravens. And they have the opportunities. They're just not necessarily executing and finishing those plays. And those are big. Again, I talk about momentum. Those are huge for this Ravens team. But, I like the tenacity this team played with in the second half. They seemed to find their groove, and we saw guys. It just seemed like they were almost lifeless in the first half a little bit, but we saw the energy pick up in the second half, and that's big. We've seen this team kind of go through the motions before, but they don't give up. So going through those motions, I think John Harbaugh had a lot to say at halftime, and he said, I don't know, I wish I could be a fly on the wall for those halftime locker room speeches, but he probably said, look, we can come back in this thing and look, guys are probably feeling a little bit like, oh man, what do we do from here? Not necessarily, oh, we lost, but all right, what's the game plan? How do we adjust now? And I thought the Ravens overall made good adjustments to get themselves back in the game. Because if Cleveland scores, a field goal, or Chase McLaughlin makes that field goal and something else happens, maybe there's a big play for a touchdown, the Ravens are out of this game. But they fought their way back. The defense did a good job at playing the sticks well, making sure Cleveland didn't necessarily get a first down, but were stuck in third and medium, third and long situations. And then all of a sudden, if you got them into 4th and 2 or whatever, they weren't going to risk it by going for it if they were close to their own territory in it. So we saw a lot of punts. We saw the Ravens make some things happen on defense. So look, the defense did not play well in the first half for the Ravens. It's not a secret. You can look at the score and you can see it. But I think I am very impressed with how they responded in the second half. And again, goes to show that they will not give up, even if they're down to their 8th cornerback, which, at this point is probably not out of their own possibility, considering what they've gone through this season at that position. But regardless of who's on the field, these guys believe in each other. They've been together, and they understand what each brings to the table. So they didn't come out with a win on Sunday, but still, there are some positives to build upon, although I know right now it doesn't really feel that way for a Ravens team that has lost 2 straight and has dropped to 8-5, but they're still in the AFC North hunt, still leading the AFC North, and we'll talk about that and where this team goes from here when we get back for our final segment. So stay tuned for that, and we'll be right back. This holiday season, grab the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar or even better than a candy bar. In Built Bar, you get the best of both worlds, delicious and healthy. There are so many flavors you'll have a hard time choosing. Built Bar gives you the extra food you need to beat down and battle those holiday shoppers and bust down the mall doors. People are so passionate about their favorite flavor, they'll fight for it, and things will get out of hand. Tell Santa to throw a few of those Built Bars in those stockings, and you can dip your Built Bar into a piping hot cup of cocoa, let it melt a little bit, and give your beverage a bit of that Built Bar flavor. Like some of the marshmallow treats around the holidays, you need to get your hands on Built Bar Puffs. They're light, fluffy, and marshmallowy through and through. So go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off of your order. BetOnline has you covered all season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season continues to march to the playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. It's our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. This is our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. To wait, take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. We return here. It's our final segment of this Monday edition of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher is still here with you. We talked about the Ravens' 24-22 defeat to the Cleveland Browns in Week 14. Now the Ravens head home to play the Green Bay Packers in Week 15. So not necessarily an easy game by any means. Green Bay has been one of the most consistent teams in the NFL. They are at the top of the NFC this year, one of the best teams in that conference, and I think that they have the potential to go all the way to the Super Bowl this season, and they're doing it without a couple of their really, really key contributors. Darius Smith, former Raven, has been out for a very long time for them. Jair Alexander, they're working with, some injury woes. Now, not to the extent the Ravens are, but they've been going through some stuff themselves. Aaron Rodgers has his toe thing that he's been dealing with, but look, every team is injured at this point in the year. Some more than others, as I'm sure Ravens fans are very familiar with, but yeah, this is going to be no easy matchup with Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones coming to town. It's a very formidable offense, one that can put up points in a hurry and excels. And against the Ravens defense, we don't really know what's up with Calais Campbell right now. They're not going to have Marlon Humphrey. They're not going to have Marcus Peters. All these guys are out. No Deshaun Elliott. So this pass defense is going to have to step up in a huge way. Devontae Adams is one of the best, if not the best receiver in the NFL. Anthony Averett versus Devontae Adams, a big matchup we'll talk about here right now. And obviously, I think throughout the week as well as this game kind of creeps up on us. It'll probably sneak up pretty quickly. But yeah, this offense for the Packers is one that can put up points in a hurry. And so the Ravens could be staring 3 straight losses in the face, especially with the other injuries they suffered. And it's going to be potentially like the Tyler Huntley show. We don't know. Maybe Lamar Jackson does come back and is healthy in this game. We'll figure that out as the week goes on. I'm sure the Ravens will release some more updates, keep people informed, and figure out, how severe his ankle injury is. Obviously, people are hoping for a speedy recovery for all these Ravens, of course, but Jackson is the lifeblood of this team, and there are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So when looking at just the player he is, what he brings to the table for the Ravens, compared to Huntley, look, they have similar skill sets. And I think when you look at when Lamar Jackson replaced Joe Flacco in 2018, Lamar Jackson was running a Joe Flacco offense. That's a little bit different from what you're looking at for the Ravens and everything that you're going with. So with Baltimore in particular, I think that there's a lot to look forward to, but at the same time, they're in a rut right now. They have played poorly on offense over the past month. They've been looking at a bunch of different things where it's like, all right, can they finally fix it this week? Can they finally fix it that week? All these different things are easy to say, yeah, you know what? It'll be the week this week, but we haven't done it. Against the Blitz, Greg Roman said, hey, we have the answers. I haven't seen the answers. Guys are running for their lives in the pocket. If you're a Baltimore Ravens quarterback, there are people who are looking for this Ravens team. All right, where can we expose them? Oh, they don't play the blitz well. Let's just blitz them. We see teams who aren't blitzing teams whatsoever this season blitz on 45% of dropbacks, blitz them at an insane rate because they know, oh, look, the book is out. This is how we stop them. And they haven't shown us anything otherwise. This isn't like some false Lamar Jackson narrative that people have been used to, right? Like, oh, Lamar Jackson can't throw. Lamar Jackson can't do this. Those are narratives that just aren't true whatsoever. But this is actually true, where Greg Roman, the Ravens offense, whoever you want to put it on, has not shown the ability to adjust to the blitz. And it's hurting them because they're getting better at it. We're starting to see them utilize the short pass game a little more. We're starting to see them do a little bit. But at the same time, they're not getting the results they want. The offense is kind of struggling. I think it still all starts up front. The offensive line has been not great over the past month. I mean, they're a unit that's missing Ronnie Stanley, Patrick McCary, right? They don't have top end talent right now. Like Bradley Bozeman is good. Kevin Zeitler is good. They have some pieces that are talented, but just as a whole, like Ben Powers hasn't been playing very well. Alejandro Villanueva has been very inconsistent. Tyree Phillips is not a tackle at this stage right now, and they're working with what they have to work with, and there's nothing they can do about it. So at the end of the day, look, the Ravens have the Packers in week 15. They then have to travel to Cincinnati in week 16. Then they have the Rams and the Steelers at home. So they have a tough end of their schedule. This is still certainly a team that can make the playoffs. I'm not all doom and gloom on this team and saying, hey, look, they're done. They're not winning another game. That's a possibility. That could happen if everything goes wrong. But at the end of the day, I think this team still has enough to at least make it as a wild card team. I think they did too well in the beginning of the year and set themselves up too well not to at least be the 7th seed in the AFC. But you have to keep in mind the AFC in general is a very tough conference with a lot of teams still on the hunt. So looking at all that, looking at where the Ravens are injury-wise, a lot of people say don't use the injury excuse. The injury excuse is every team goes through it. I understand. Football is a game of injuries. Everybody hurts with the injuries. At the same time, though, the Ravens aren't getting their guys back at this point. They'll probably get Nick Boyle back, hopefully at some point. Hopefully Patrick McCary back. Hopefully Lamar Jackson. Hopefully Calais Campbell. But as I've talked about, J.K. Dobbins is not walking through that door. Gus Edwards not walking through the door. Marlon Humphrey. Those guys are all done. They're done for the year. They've had countless key contributors go out. So at some point you have to say, look, this isn't an excuse. This is reality. This Ravens team is not as good as it would be completely healthy, as every NFL team is not as good right now as it would be completely healthy. But with just injuries gutting the offense, gutting the defense, the fact that John Harbaugh and this coaching staff has been able to get the Ravens where they are right now is very impressive. So at the end of the day, I give them a lot of credit, but also results are what matter. Results are, everything. Not just to the fans and everybody, right? But to the players. The players want to win. The coaches want to win. Everybody wants to win. They're going to do their best to do so. I'm impressed with how the Ravens fought against Cleveland. It's looking a little dark in Baltimore right now, but it's not the end. I try to keep it that way and say, look, it's not over till it's over. It kind of seems a little doom and gloom right now. I understand. I feel it. I get it. But the Ravens, as long as Lamar Jackson is there, they can do anything. And if he can get it together, then they will be, I think, a much better football team, obviously, because when he's on, I think the whole offense will feed off of that, and they will be able to do a lot more on that side of the football. But that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in. When we get back here tomorrow, we'll be diving into more Ravens talk, so stay tuned for that, and I will see you tomorrow.